Hello and welcome to Cup of Joe. This is the first Cup of Joe, first official Cup of Joe that I've done in a few months for the YouTube channel here. In the middle of summer this last year, I decided to try an experiment that ended up not turning out the way I thought it would or perhaps hoped it would, but it's always worthwhile trying to bring you fun things that I think you'll enjoy. So Cup of Joe went elsewhere for a while, and I've decided to bring it back here now. So this will be the first Cup of Joe of 2018 and first one back on the channel in some time. If you haven't watched any of the other Cup of Joes, it's kind of a less structured video format. This one, I literally just recorded the Coffee Lovers TV episode for this coffee, this Ladro Ethiopia Hambella, which is what I'm drinking right now. That will be coming out soon. And I just kind of felt on a roll and thought I would sit down and chat and say hi again. By less structured, I mean I kind of ramble a bit. Sometimes I have a little bit of a script to go on. I do have one topic on my mind that I was writing about for myself, really. And this coffee is one of those coffees that kind of brings the subject back up into my mind, and that's this kind of dynamic in the whole wide world of coffee and coffee drinkers between dark and light. And that's kind of a simplification, but one of my primary jobs is helping you discover really interesting experiences, at least experiences that I think are really interesting in coffee. Like, I drink this coffee and you'll be able to watch the video on this, but there's a lot of sugar, there's a lot of like melon fruit to it, a little bit of lime. It's a really, really tasty coffee, and I want you to be able to have that experience, and I want you to understand how coffees can taste like this. It's one of the things that always puzzled the heck out of me when I started drinking coffee, is how people could talk about coffee tasting like such amazing things. Okay, so it's my job to kind of figure out how to do that, right? And I'll offer coffees, really interesting coffees like this and others in the Coffee Lovers box. And a lot of people will really enjoy that, but some people will not. They'll try it and it just won't click for them. That's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I'll also try that in person. Like if I know someone who is interested in coffee but usually drinks like lattes or dark roast coffee or that sort of thing, and I'll say, okay, I got something really interesting, we'll try this out. The interesting phenomenon is when people try coffees that I know are rich and sweet and complex and have a lot of flavor and depth and are these really vibrant, interesting coffees, and their reaction will be, oh, that tastes like nothing, or it's just bitter, or it's weak, that sort of thing. I've had comments of, oh, I prefer stronger coffees. That's a whole part of this idea that has been floating around in my head, these concepts. The idea of strong coffee is a totally another subject. I'm not going to jump down that rabbit hole right now. But to the crux of the point, like I said, I get rambly. If you grow up drinking dark roasted coffee, if you're introduced to the world of coffee, drinking dark roasted coffee, especially drinking lattes, mochas, anything with like milk and sugar added, but especially dark roasted coffee, then you are training your taste buds, your senses, all of your senses in a really harsh way. Dark roasted coffee has a lot of different structure to it. You're gonna end up with a lot more harsh oils in the coffee, caramelized sugars, often burnt sugars, burnt oils, and all these sorts of things. You're essentially coating your senses in really dense harshness. And your body is going to adapt to that. Your tastes are going to adapt so that becomes the norm. And then if that's the norm for your senses, and then you drink something like this, like if what I just described is the norm for your senses, this will probably taste like bitter water. And it's absolutely anything but that. But the problem is just that there's whole layers to this sort of thing, which makes it really difficult for me to kind of wrap my head around this. But the industry of coffee kind of hamstrings itself by roasting so much coffee dark, because it creates this almost unpassable rift between dark charred, deep burnt coffee. Getting back to the idea of strong, a lot of people's idea of strong coffee is really just coffee with a lot of oils and thickness and overwhelming sense to it that is more along their taste norm. And then a coffee like this is a light roasted coffee, but even a medium roasted coffee, which has can have really deep, sweet, complex flavors, just can't get across to your senses when you're over here, when you're in that space of dark and oily being the norm. So the coffee industry kind of shoots itself in the foot that way. The problem is most people want that, and the coffee industry has to give the market what it wants. So we're in this kind of awkward, cyclical, double-edged sword. Okay, to try to wrap some sense around what I just said, I think a good analogy is sugar. Now, there's a lot of sugar in everything, especially in like taking the classic American diet. Like if you go to a restaurant or you get prepackaged foods of any kind, everything has sugar in it. There's so much sugar in everything. If you take 30 days and cut out all added sugar, like if all the food you eat is just whole ingredients that you buy and make for yourself, you don't add sugar to anything, the only sugar that you have is in like berries and other fruits. If you do that for 30 days, then after those 30 days, you have a drink with sugar in it. Like, let's say normally you would drink a latte, like a flavored latte, then you take a month to not have added sugar in anything. Then you have that latte again after those 30 days, it's gonna taste so overwhelmingly sweet to you that you will be disgusted. That is what I'm talking about. You're not going to just do that experiment with your food eating habits unless you are highly motivated. And it's the same with coffee. Like, I think that anyone has the capability to really enjoy this and consider this deep, rich, and satisfying coffee, but not if your senses are in the state where the overwhelmingness of dark roasted, burnt charred oils, sugars, etc., where that's the norm. So you have to be willing to shift your perspective and endure the change to get there. At least that's kind of what I've been thinking lately. I don't know. What do you think about that? Did that make sense? Did that make actual sense?